Now we see a number of themes in Lanval that come from Celtic sources and have deep mythological roots. One is the idea of the fairy world as spectacularly beautiful, and in this case, actually much more just and fair and good than the court of Arthur. And the court of Arthur is very clearly utilized here as an example of what's supposed to be the very best in the world that falls so very short in terms of being genuinely good, genuinely just, genuinely fair. And so it's by way of comparison, the realm of the fairy queen is all the greater, right? When you know that that the court of King Arthur seems so tawdry and paltry and unjust in comparison. Another aspect that comes out of Celtic lore would be the realm of the fairies engaging in the wild hunt, and the fact that the fairy lover in this case doesn't actively hunt Lanval that's an aspect here, but when the fairy queen does come to save Lanval, you'll notice she has a page with an ivory hunting horn, and I would say that this was a kind of an ancient echo there. But the most important thing I want to talk about today is the idea of the Lennon Sea, the fairy lover. This is a very common Celtic trope, and very often what happens is the human lover comes into contact with and falls madly in love with the fairy. Very often the fairy is willing to grant the lover romantic favors in return for a very specific condition or set of conditions. And of course we have that in Lanval. He can never speak of her to anyone else. In stories of the fairy lover, generally somehow or other, by mistake or on purpose, the lover breaks this rule, and very generally, frankly, is left forever by the fairy lover then, and then pines away after having been abandoned by this more than beautiful or more than human creature who is intensely beautiful and intensely attractive in every way. Now, in terms of the trope of the fairy lover, the fact is that we very often would have a male fairy lover, but we often have a female as well. And here, the fairy queen acts as kind of the epitome of perfection in beauty and everything else in nobility. And very often the fairies are depicted as almost painfully beautiful to gaze upon. It's like looking into the noonday sun, right? But the fairies are often depicted as being amoral when it comes to human beings. Like we are sort of to them as flies to wanton boys, as the line in Lear tells us. You know, they kill us for their sport. We're not equal to them, and so they don't kind of worry about us. We're not a part of their moral calculus. Now in Lanval, we have a much more sophisticated, much gentler, much more generous fairy queen, but that's not always the case. Here, however, the fairy queen is not just intensely beautiful, like a noonday sun to look upon, but she's also intensely just, intensely fair. Everything you could want. She's the epitome of everything you could want in beauty and love and justice. She's the archetypal perfect queen, and so she is more than an appropriate object for Lanval's affection. And when he sees everything that happens in the court of Arthur, including how sluttish and how horrific Guinevere is, so even the queen of the court of Arthur comes across as a terrible person, really, in context, then when Lanval is given the opportunity to ride off into the sunset, as it were, with the fairy queen, he's riding into a perfect world with a perfect lover, and that's kind of the best case scenario for the trope of the fairy lover.